Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience episode number 184. If you want clarity about your life and or your business, you can schedule a one-on-one coaching session with me. You can send an email to fr@francesrichards.com. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards, acclaimed author, father, husband, and comedian at heart. Welcome, J.B. Lyon.
Good morning.
Good morning. Why don't you fill in the gaps? Share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business.
Okay, well, name is J.B. Lyon. I have been a creative writer pretty much all my life, and my major motivation for today is to talk about my book. It's a 5-book series called The Seventh Spark, the paranormal thriller type of book. And I'm doing something a little different called a visual novel, which I'll get into a little bit later. But I've been working on this for the last 7 years, and I'm very happy to say that I'll be releasing that book on September the 1st of this year. Outside of that, family man. I have two sons, both of them grown now. One of them just graduated during this crazy time. Didn't really have much of a graduation, but he made it through. And my other son is 20 and is in college now. Been married for 22 years to my lovely wife, Tanya. And as far as any hobbies, anything I do in my spare time, real big into technology, love video games, movies, those kinds of things. Kind of a fantasy geek, a Greek mythology geek, if you will. And as far as sports, I do Muay Thai in my spare time. So I like to box and spar and do those kinds of things to try to stay healthy. That's pretty much me in a nutshell.
You talked about writing most of your life. Did you go to school to become a writer?
No, I did not. I went to school for business, and I still do a lot of consulting to this day. It's funny because my day job or what I've done, I've worked in the corporate world for 20 years. Started off as a small business consultant and wrote business plans and a bunch of technical information. Done a lot of work with technology, mostly transit technology, worked on all kinds of projects across the globe as a consultant and a project manager. And I use creative writing really as an escape. For you got corporate guys out there, especially being Black or African American, I'm sure you can be aware of some of the trials and tribulations and things that we have to go through. A lot of times we are the only one in the boardroom or the manager, whatever the case may be, and that brings along added stress. A lot of times you've got to work 3 times harder than the person right next to you. And I really use creative writing as an escape from that. So I've been doing it since I was small, creating little stories here and there, little fantasy stories. I fell in love with read your own adventure books back in the day, and I would create those kinds of stories. I love comic books. I love to read about Greek mythology and different paranormal things. Big Stephen King fan. Big George R.R. Martin fan, and those kind of things just kind of stuck with me, and you'll see that in my writing for my release of The Seventh Spark.
So what are you reading right now?
I've kind of taken a bit of a break from reading. The last book I did read was George R.R. Martin's Blood and Fire, or Fire and Blood, which was the prequel to the Game of Thrones series, which talks a lot of the Targaryen family before all of the craziness happened with the whole Game of Thrones series. So I'm a huge fan. I've read all the books, of course, watched the series, and absolutely love the way that guy writes. So that is the last book that I've read. At this point, though, I've been so inundated with editing and finishing the editing process for my books that I haven't had a lot of time to read anything new, but that was the last book that I read.
What problem, JB, exists in the world today that you'd like to solve?
Oh man, that's a wonderful question. Well, there's a lot of them out there. Pandemic aside, I think, what's most relevant to me right now is what's going on within the Black community, Black men being targeted, if you will, by the police. As a victim of police brutality myself, I've experienced it, I've seen it, I know what it is. And there's definitely something that we need to take a look at, a hard look at, as African Americans and as Black people, to figure out how we can still be a viable part of the U.S. economy and socially and economically, but figure out a way that we can have some things for ourselves and figure out how we can build communities better and join band back together. Because I see how, I would say, you look at some towns. I live in Houston, and there's a couple of areas in the Bel Air area where it's just pretty much the entire town is Asian. Everything is in Chinese language or Vietnamese language. They have their own, and we don't seem to have a lot that we can call our own. And until we do, I only see things getting worse and not better. We've got to be able to, in my opinion, kind of create our own community so that we can police our own communities and feel like we have kind of a safe haven, because at this point, we really don't. And it's a sad thing to say that we're still where we are, but that's the reality that we're at. And the economic gap, the social gap, the prison gap, all those education gap, all those gaps are still there, and they're still pretty wide. Our whole focus to integrate, in my opinion, hasn't worked as well as advertised. As Black men and women, we've got to do something a little different. That's, if I had, the money and the resources, that's what I would spend my time working on, is to make sure that we find a better way, a better avenue to navigate if we want to continue to live in the United States.
And who do you see as our leaders?
Another tough question. I would say at this point we don't have any, and I think that's okay. I think I talk to my friends all the time. I got a group of college friends, and we talk constantly about these issues. And everybody's saying, "Well, where's our leader? Who's going to lead?" And things change, times change. I don't think the things that worked in the '60s and the '70s will work today. Because we keep trying them, and they don't seem to be getting us anywhere. Some of the most powerful organizations, when it comes to protests and making their case known, are organizations where you don't know who the leader is. I think that as long as we can kind of band together as a group, I don't know if we really truly need, someone to lead the effort, because unfortunately, if you take the Black Lives Matter initiative, you could say that obviously that organization has taken the lead, but I think that they've tacked on a lot of different things. Now, you can say that's rightfully so or not, but I think that they're tackling not only Black issues, they're tackling, transgender issues, they're tackling gay issues, they're tackling all kinds of discrimination issues, which are, valid. But, I think from our perspective, we probably need to focus particularly on just our motives and what we're trying to accomplish. And I think you can do that, but I don't necessarily think you need leadership. You just need, you need fellowship. You need people to band together under a common goal. And I don't know necessarily you need a leader to do that.
Tell us what you are most grateful for now in your life, JB.
I would say contentment. This whole experience with me writing these books is the journey that I've had to go through. Started off very young in my career and was on a quest to try to, be one of the youngest this and the youngest that. I got my certification in project management when I was only 25 years old. And in such a rush to try to achieve what I thought was success. And that brought me a lot of stress, brought me a lot of really depression and those kinds of things, because you have to deal with so much you're working these, multi-million dollar deals and dealing with these high-end clients and so forth. And having these books has kind of given me an escape, and I've kind of taken back some of my life and been able to say, okay, hey, look, I'm content with just being a writer and being able to get up every day and work on the things that I want to work on and work on, trying to achieve my dreams and not worrying about, climbing some invisible ladder of success. So that I'm definitely grateful for.
Advice you wish you had followed?
Advice, I would say, go for your dreams, definitely, which is everybody says that, but if you ever heard the song, Eye of the Tiger, it says, trade your passion for glory. And I think we do that all the time. I know I did it. I was young, I just had a kid, and it was all about, hey, I got to make this money, as opposed to, no, I need to start this business and all the different things that I really wanted to do. I could have started writing these books a long time ago, and it wouldn't have been the same book, but it would have been something different from a different perspective, obviously, because I was a younger man. But at the same time, I would say, look, if you got to start your business out of the garage, do that. Start young. Don't let the pressures or the foreseen perception that people give you say, oh, you're doing this, you need to have a job, you need to do this. It's all a game. It's all not real. It's these perception and the peer pressure that life and people put on you. That's not realistic. It's not real. The ones that have been super successful, that have made it, and that are self-made, they started with nothing, and they didn't let anything deter them. And it took a while, and yes, they had to sleep in their cars or do whatever they had to do, but in the end, they didn't let that deter them. As a younger man, that is definitely advice that I would have taken and started small and just continue to build and not let anybody stop.
What do you see for JB over the next couple of years?
Next couple of years, it's all about the 7 Spark series. Again, it's a 5-book series, paranormal thriller, and that is my focus. I'm introducing a concept of a visual novel, which is I call it a book on acid. Basically, what it means is it's not going to look like a traditional novel. It will look more like a comic book, which mixed with a graphic novel, mixed to magazine, which will be a unique and different experience for the reader. I call it an immersive experience. It's something you have to see in order to get it. And I have a free preview that everybody can check out on my website, www.jvline.com. They can go and check that out and kind of get a feel for what it looks like. But it's definitely that you've never really seen before or experienced with a novel. And I'm all in on it. And that is going to be my focus for the next 3-4 years. Hopefully, at some point, my ultimate goal is to get this out, get this content out, and create a whole universe around the 7 Spark and my characters. It'd be great to do a Netflix series or something of that nature about my books. What you're going to find, readers are going to find, is that I've got some very in-depth characters, some very intriguing and realistic dialogue, and some very suspenseful situations that these people get themselves into. And again, the experience is something that will be different. Well, it'll be different for the reader, and that was done on purpose. I didn't want my books to look like any other book that you've ever seen. So obviously taking a risk with doing something new and different. But I think it was time. I think that this is a new generation of readers, and readers are more visual people nowadays. We've got YouTube, we've got Instagram, we've got all these different things, and people are just more visual. And so I wanted to bring that visual concept into my books, and I think that people will really enjoy it. So that is definitely going to be my focus the next 3 or 4 years.
JB, what can we do right now to support your business?
Well, the best thing that you can do is go to my website at www.jvline.com and pre-order a copy of my book or sign up for my email list, and I'll send you a free chapter of my visual novel. That way you'll get a chance to see what the final product looks like. The content creation is rare now. I mean, you have all these different people. You have all this need for this new content. the great Stan Lee, he passed on, and I think it's time for new people to kind of come in and take the mantle. Another thing, as a Black man or as African American, I think it's time for our stuff to hear our perspective from our point of view. I kid around and I call myself the Black Gandalf because, I've read all the Tolkien books. I've read all the fantasy novels, the paranormal novels, and so forth, but not many out there from a Black perspective. I think it's time for that. I think that all cultures should have, different paranormal, different genres. It's been dominated by one race, when it comes to fantasy and paranormal and those types of books. And time to change it. I think that Jordan, Peele, he helped to change a little bit of that in the horror genre. I look to do the same on the paranormal side and really give you guys a different perspective. And I'm really, really hoping that, that you'll enjoy it. But the only way the content is going to grow is that people got to support it. So, again, my books come out on September the 1st. The visual novel experience will only be available on paperback. There'll be an ebook version, but the ebook version will be more like a traditional novel. So I really encourage people to go out and buy the paperback and spread the word and tell me what you think. Definitely looking forward to feedback.
Talk about your ideal audience.
My ideal audience is people who have an open mind, or paranormal fans, are looking for the unexpected, and are thrill seekers. A lot of plot twists. It's a very, very thrilling and suspenseful and fast-paced book. But the biggest part of my book is I explore the gray areas of the soul. I really get into what's good and what's bad. I really want people to, at the end of the day, when they finish reading the book, they go back and examine what they believe in and why they believe in those things. I think that people's belief system on the spiritual, moral level, and the social level have a lot to do with their environment, their surroundings, what they've been used to, what they've been told. The biggest thing that I do in the 7-Spark Experience series is that the books, all 5 books, basically are around the same story arc, but they're told from different perspectives. And those perspectives have a lot to do with what socioeconomic class is that person in, what do they believe religiously, what kind of experiences have they had that have shaped their beliefs. And all these different things kind of helped us to map out that, is there really a good person, is there really a bad person, or is there really more of a gray area? And those are the things that I really want people to try to get out of my books. And that's what the message that I'm really trying to hit home with.
Do you self-publish or do you have a publisher?
I have a publisher, Creative Publishing. They're in India, and they are publishing my book, and as well as helping me with the marketing efforts. So it's good to have a publisher instead of having to go out on your own. But for those of you that are looking to go out on your own, I've done it before. So my first book that I wrote several years ago was called The Ball. It was a short story, and I put it out on my own on Amazon. That was a great experience, I would say, for any new writer. It's okay to go out and self-publish because it teaches you a lot. You get your book out to an audience. They're able to give you feedback, and you're able to improve your craft by doing that. A lot of times if you sit and you wait for a literary agent, that could take years. And even then, I've heard stories where, you get a literary agent, they send it out to publishers, and then they still don't get published. The publishing market is such a difficult one. It's about taking a chance on you. I've read the story about Stephen King where his Carrie book, which was obviously a great success, made a lot of movies, did a lot of great things. He ended up throwing that particular book in the trash because nobody would take it. It turns out that his wife was the one who resurrected it, pulled it out of the trash, and helped him to keep going. And then eventually it got picked up and was a great success. So publishers are under a lot of pressure. They feel if they don't sell 1 million copies, then they don't want your book. Well, maybe your book, it doesn't sell 1 million copies. Maybe it sells 100,000 copies. But hey, that's still a success. So I would say that don't be afraid to go out there and self-publish. There's so many good tools. And it's so much easier than it used to be 10 years ago to really go out there and put together a very professionally looking self-published book.
Talk about the stages of becoming a writer and eventually publishing your book.
The whole series, The Seventh Spark, came from a game I played with my sons. As a young father, I think I had my oldest son when I was 23 years old. When they got about 5, 6 years old, we played this game. It was like a King of the Hill game or King of the Universe kind of a game. We had this realm, and we had different species, and I had a species, my sons had their species, and we would play this game. What species could conquer the other, so they could be the king of the realm, basically. And we come up with all these different plots and schemes on how to take over the kingdom. As this was going, I started to write some of these things down. They started to be some really creative ideas and different characters. We started to build these characters. And I started to write all this stuff down, and before you know it, I had a journal full of just stories and different characters and so forth. And it was really out of the nagging, I say, of my wife, who said, hey, you got to do something with this, because she's a writer as well. She is a poet. She writes a lot of poetry and a lot of short stories. And she was like, look, you have all this stuff. You need to just write it down and create a book out of it. And I was like, no, I don't really want to do that. And she just kept pressing, and finally I started putting pen to paper, and before you know it, I was hooked, and I really got into it. But I say all that is that I'm a storyteller. So, I understand the story, but I didn't understand how to transition the words and how to make it into a book. It's a big difference between being a storyteller and being a book writer. So what I did was I went to a lot of local writing clubs and reading clubs, and I would just submit my stuff, and they would tear it to shreds and say, hey, this is missing, and, you forgot to transition this and all of that. I did it for two reasons. One, I wanted to obviously improve my writing, and the other one, I wanted to see how much interest people had in the story and what I would typically get. It's always a good story, but, the actual writing needs a lot of improvement. And so I did that for about 3 years, and I just kept honing it and changing it and working on it. And before you knew it, I was able to develop a writing style that worked. And I think that, for any new writers out there, now, if you've been classically trained, then probably don't have that issue. Your issue may be content, and if it's content, I would say that the internet is the greatest thing ever when it comes to content. You can really, I use Google Images a lot to try to find characters and try to say, okay, what does this guy really look like? What's his personality and so forth. And so I kind of mismatch, different images and say, okay, maybe, it looks like this, but he's got that. And I kind of picture it all in my mind and put it all together. But if you're more of a storyteller, and you need to work on your writing craft, I would highly suggest, either you're taking some writing classes, or just, if that's too expensive, use your community. There's plenty of writing and reading groups that are out there, and they will go in and they will redline your stuff for you and tell you where you're making mistakes. And that's what really helped me to hone my writing skills and put it all together.
And you were talking about taking a writing class, and if you search online, and you said something about Google and just the internet, we're living in an amazing time. But there are so many top universities that's offering free courses. So you might want to look, whether it's Harvard or Yale or Stanford, just Google top universities and see if you can find a free writing class just to get you started. Sometimes we go into this analysis to paralysis and we don't get started. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do. So you must start.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there for criticism, because that's the most important thing. When I get a review, when I first put my first book out the wall, when I got a review, to be honest, I would look more for the negative ones than the positive ones. because the negative ones I wanted to see, one, was that the target audience that I was looking for, and sometimes it wasn't, and so those you can kind of throw out. But the ones that it was, I really wanted to see what they didn't like about the book, especially when I started to put together this visual novel. I meant through iteration and iteration and iteration of this visual novel. This visual novel, the concept of it has changed so many times. And, I have to laugh about it because I knew what I wanted. I had a concept in my head. But after I've gone out and I've shown it to people, and they're like, oh, no, that doesn't work, this and that, or whatever. And then as you say, we are living in an exciting time. As you see new content come out and you see different images, and, I went and I scoured a bunch of magazines just to see how they're presenting information. And the Snapchat filters and all the different things you can do with colors nowadays. When I saw those things, my eyes opened up and I'm like, oh no, I need to change this, And then finally, it was a combination of all those things that got me settled on, okay, here's my approach. The other thing is, as you said, paralysis through analysis. You have to be careful. At some point, you do have to make a decision. So, I say all that, you've got to kind of give yourself the time to make a decision. But once you make it, it's best to stick with it, or you're going to have so many rewrites, and it's just going to become frustrating for you. Another thing I would say is, don't rush any of it. This took me, 7 years to get here, and it could have took me more, and I think that's okay. I had my final draft of this book ready in January, but I'm not releasing it until September, and the reason for that is because I'm going through it constantly making minor adjustments, looking at the visuals. I want to make sure that it's as close to perfect as I can get it, but knowing that, it'll never be perfect. There's plenty of books that go out that have editing issues and so forth, despite their best efforts. It's never going to be perfect. But if you're willing to take the time and you're not in a rush, that's always going to be better from a design perspective and putting out your best work.
JB, we can learn from successful entrepreneurs, people, or brands. Tell us a brand or business that is dominating, that you admire, and why.
I'm typically not a very, I would say, capitalistic person. I kind of ignore brands and kind of walk to the beat of my own drum. If I would have to say a brand I do admire, I would say it would be Nike, because they're willing to take risks, and the risks they took on Colin Kaepernick and everything that was going on, and all that chaos was going on, I thought that was very bold of them. So from a human rights perspective, or from that perspective, I definitely give them a thumbs up. And their branding is exceptional, right? I mean, you're talking about a check mark basically becoming a global brand. The effort to do that was absolutely amazing. I definitely think that their boldness, the way that they come out and promote products, is exceptional. The way that they do things. I also have to, even though I'm not a huge Amazon fan, I obviously do order things from Amazon. I have to give it up to Jeff Bezos and the stuff that he's doing around the pandemic. His willingness to sit his stockholders down and say, hey, we made a killing during this pandemic, but guess what? We're going to give all the money back to support COVID efforts to get rid of the virus and to help the economy. I thought was absolutely fantastic. You don't see that every day from multi-billionaires, and for him to do that was absolutely amazing to me.
Speaking of books, Jeff Bezos' Amazon started, if you read the story, all around books.
When I was doing my first book, I went through KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, and it's an outstanding tool. Anybody that's a new author, or, if you already are an author, I'm sure you know about it. The KDP publishing tool is an excellent tool. I mean, it's and it really is, with the royalties and the percentages that you can make from the book, it's very fair. Experience nothing but good things using the KDP product. So not a full endorsement on Amazon or KDP or anything of that nature, but I know that I've had a great experience working with them, and they really changed the publishing game and put the control more to the author than these publishers.
What is your biggest achievement so far in business?
I would say just being willing to start one and to keep going. A few years ago, not more than a few years, I'm aging myself here. About 10 years ago, a video game store, and ran it for about 3 years before I sold it. That was one of my bigger regrets, is that I kind of gave up on it. The market for video games is definitely changed, and that was one of the biggest decisions, one of the reasons why I did it. But at the same time, I always wanted to be a business owner, and in hindsight, I wish I would have stuck it out. With these books, I feel this is my second chance here, and so I really want just to continue to write, just to continue to put out content, and grow this into a business empire. And at this point, I'm just putting, my heart and my soul into it, and I'm going to continue to do that going forward. I think it's important. I think it's important to have something of your own, and because nobody's going to work harder on your business but you. And if you're willing to do that, put in the dedication and the time, eventually it's going to bear fruit. Obviously I need support. I'm asking everybody that's listening to this wonderful podcast again to go to www.jb.line and to check out my work and to pre-order a copy of your book today. And on September 1st, go out and buy the paper book and support me. I'm going to continue to write. I'm going to continue to give you good content. That is my plan, and I am dedicated and determined to continue to do that.
If someone wrote an autobiography about you, JB, what would it be titled?
I would say it'd be titled Lionheart, and the only reason I say that is because people who haven't seen me, I have kind of a face like a lion. I have a long chin and the different things, and so I have the cat eyes, so I kind of have a lion type of look. The other reason is I'm a very bold person. I take risks, and calculated risks, not just jumping out there and doing anything, but I do take risks, and I'm not afraid to take them and be accountable for them. I've taken a lot of risks in my life, whether it be being in the stock market, whether it be in business, whether it be in life. I've taken risks, and some of them haven't worked out, but others have. And you take the good and the bad, you do your lessons learned, and you just keep fighting. So I would say that 43 years old, and I'm still out there fighting. I'm still out there trying to make my dreams come true. So that's what I think the title of the book would be, and it would show all of my successes, and it would also show all my failures. I'm very opponent of you tell it like it is. No one in this life that has been successful didn't have any trials or tribulations. We all go through it. It's just how we get through it and how we continue to stand up is what makes us better people.
Speaking of risk and or failure, talk about your worst moment in business and what was your takeaway?
So having to sell my store. So when I had the Gamer store, and I was seeing the profits decline, and I saw being able to sell the business was the way out. That was a very low moment for me. It's always my dream to have my own business, do my own thing. And when I saw that, that dream go away from me, it was definitely a tough time. I kind of went into a bit of a depression around it, and I did a lot of things. Blame God, and like, hey man, why did you take this away from me, and so forth. But the biggest lesson that I learned from that is God, in my opinion, and whether you believe in Christ and God, I'm a Catholic, I'm a Christian, and I believe in Jesus and Christ and God and those things. But I think what you can take out of that, whether you believe that or not, is that God, or whatever you believe in, is not in some of the things that you think that he's in. And what I mean by that is, when I was running the business, there were clear signs of where the market was going and things were going. And if you ignore those things, and which I did in a lot of cases, the end result made sense. It was a business move. It's business. Businesses go up and down based on the market, supply and demand. It's all a calculated thing. Yeah, sometimes luck does come and get involved, but for the most part, it's all about dollars and cents and numbers and things that you learn in school. I think that we, as Christians or people that believe in a higher power, or however you want to say it, we get caught up in, I prayed for this, so this is what's supposed to happen. Well, I tend to believe that God is in the smaller things. And what I mean by that is how you handle those situations is where God is at. Not as opposed to, he's going to get you this new car, he's going to get you this new house, or these new businesses, and it's going to be successful because you prayed for it. I think that the biggest thing that I learned is that Christ and God was in me recovering from the issues that I had from leaving the business and making me be more content and making me be able to live with myself and live with my decisions and live with my failures and live with my successes and count it all joy. That's where the real nugget, that's where the real value is in. It's in your spirit, it's in the internal things, not the external things, if you will. And one of the things I do is I take those life experiences and I put those in my book. When you read The Seventh Spark, you're going to read a lot about that, about how there's so many misconceptions of what we think success is and what we think is good and bad, and really where your spirit comes in and how it's there to lead you and guide you. It's more in how you feel on the inside as opposed to all of these external things. So I would definitely say that was the biggest thing that I learned.
When it's all said and done, JB, talk about your legacy. How do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as a writer, as an author that was able to make people really think about what they believe in, make you laugh, make you cry, make you scream. I have all of those different elements, but really just make you think about what it is to be a real person and how difficult it is to live on this earth and deal with the trials and tribulations that come with life. I think a lot of my legacy, and that's the kind of legacy I want as an author, as a man, I want my legacy to be shown through my kids. I think that's the biggest thing that you can do as a father is to see your kids grow up and where they no longer need you. That's it. I mean, that's that, and you see them grow into hopefully a better example or a better sample of yourself. That's the best legacy, in my opinion, that you can give to your children. But as an author, my legacy I want to leave behind is this whole Seven Spark universe. I hope that just like series like the Star Wars, where they're able to create this entire universe, and Game of Thrones, that stuff will never die. No matter what happens to George R.R. Martin or George Lucas, he's got other people picking up the mantle that are building content because they created this entire universe. Same thing with Stan Lee. He's created this Marvel Comics, this entire universe. And I think the greatest compliment is to have somebody else take that and pick that up and keep it going. That's what I want to do with this book series is to build that universe and that breadth of characters and breadth of scenarios and story arcs where anybody can pick it up and take it and expand on it.
JB, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
The one question is, why did I want to do the visual novel? Why did I not just conform and do a traditional novel like everyone else? And the major, my reply would be, is I wanted to see a book that I would really enjoy reading. I wanted it to be different because when you look at the statistics, you'll see reading for entertainment, especially for men, has dropped. And I thought about my experiences. Like I said, I'm an avid video game fan. I love comic books, love different graphic novels and so forth. And I started to look at that, anime, all those things that are going on with the younger adults today. They all have vivid images, and it's all about more of a visual experience. When you play games, let me give you some examples like Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts or anything of that nature. It's a very immersive experience. They bring you into their world, and then they tell you the story. And that's what I wanted to do. If I was going to do something, if I was going to write something, and I was going to spend that kind of time, I wanted it to be uniquely me and something that I would enjoy reading, not just from the words, but just, it's a book that I have to have because of the look and the feel of it. I wanted this to see something that somebody would have, hey, this is something that I want to collect now, because it is so different and it is so unique. So I didn't want to take any shortcuts, and there's a lot of ways I could have taken the easy way out, just wrote the book traditionally, put it out as an ebook and been done with it. But I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to give people who were going to take the time to invest in me, invest in my product, to give them something really worthwhile, a keepsake, something that they can have and keep and show to others, a really unique and immersive experience. I really want them to get into the world that I'm trying to bring them into.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Fun Facts Lightning Round. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I'd like you to answer the questions. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Fun Facts Lightning Round?
I'm ready. Fire away.
The last movie you saw?
Sleepless, the Jamie Foxx movie.
You relax doing what?
Oh, relax doing what? Sitting out on my porch.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
That's easy. Public Enemy.
Your favorite dance song?
I want to say Can't Touch This by MC Hammer a long time ago.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Potatoes, definitely.
Your favorite month?
My favorite month? Oh man, my favorite month. I'm going to say December because it's Christmas.
Thank you, JB Lyon, for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience what is the best way for our audience to connect with you and support your business. Feel free to give all your social media handles.
Okay, well, again, you can reach me, and if you want to learn more about the 7 Spark, go to www.jblyon.com, and you can go to @7spark on Instagram and on Twitter. Those are the best way to reach me. I've got a bunch of posts about my book. I've got posts on my podcast. You'll learn much more about the characters and the different books that I'm putting out. I also have different ways that you can experience a visual novel. If you go to my website and check that out, I've got a full product catalog of all the different books and the different ways that you can experience the 7 Spark series. But those are going to be the best ways to check me out. So I appreciate you going on and logging on to Instagram or Twitter or to the website itself. And again, on Instagram and Twitter, it's @7spark.
Thank you, JB. That's a wrap.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.